the Blue Mountains, Australia, and it's lovely to be together. I think probably everybody knows Kyra, but shall I still do your introduction?
If you like a brief one, sure.
Yeah. So,
Whatever you
Kyra Julingo is a Dharma teacher and ordained nun of 15 years in Thich Nhat Hanh's Order of Interbeing, and is now based in Sri Lanka. Kyra provides individual spiritual mentoring and leads retreats internationally, offering mindfulness programs for educators, parents and youth in schools, activists, people of colour, artists and families. Kyra explores the interweaving of art, play, ecology and embodied mindfulness. If it'd be okay just to, from us in Australia, to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're all gathering on tonight. And the Gundungurra and the Darug people for us in the Blue Mountains. To pay our respects to all the elders past and present, and to any First Nations people joining us tonight. We also tonight is offered in the spirit of Dana, so it's everybody's welcome to participate regardless of finance, and you are invited to offer a donation to support the teacher so that these teachings can continue to be offered. Thank you so much, Kyra.
Thank you so much, Miriam. And I'm putting in the information for Donna in the chat. So you'll see the link to PayPal and Venmo. So we'll also be emailing you a follow-up email, and then I'll have that information too. So we want to really welcome you again, everyone. Thank you for sharing your presence with us today, and deep thank you to Miriam and the Sanghas in Sydney and the Blue Mountains for inviting me to join you today. There's a strong Australian contingent, and we decided to open it up to anybody also. So thank you for your warm hosting. And just an invitation to everyone just coming in to go ahead and mute yourself. I'll just mute everybody in case. We are recording the session today, so also want to say very happy welcome to anyone who might be participating in this after the fact in the recording. And the overview of our time together is that we'll begin with a guided meditation. And our theme tonight, this evening, this morning, wherever you happen to be in the world, is touching compassion and grounding in the face of uncertainty, grief, and loss. So we know in this time of the pandemic, there's a lot of grief, a lot of uncertainty. And so we'll be looking at how to bring compassion to this. So we'll begin with a guided meditation, and then I'll offer some reflections. And then we'll have time for questions and answers and discussion. And we'll have a brief closing together in a ritual way to offer up our prayers, our compassion to all. I'd like to just in case there's any technical issues on my end, Miriam, is it all right if I make you a co-host and also Renika, in case for some reason we need help? Renika, is that all right for you to be co-host, thank you. So let me just do that. And we should be fine. I've been having no issues, but you never know. And looking for Miriam. Okay. Okay. So the meditation that I'm going to offer us now is a meditation on cultivating compassion. And it comes from a Tibetan Lama who's a US born John McCransky. And it's a practice that helps us to begin to access the loving qualities in us, the dignity and compassionate qualities of our fundamental nature, our true nature of awakening, our Buddha nature, so that we can heal our hearts and minds in this unconditional warmth that is our birthright, each of us. And as we learn to settle into this compassionate presence within us, we touch its openness, its nature of spaciousness and clarity, and it helps us to establish a secure base of love and acceptance so that we can begin to reliably extend compassion to others. So that's the framework for this practice. So I'll just explain a little the steps we're going to do, and then we'll do it together. So I'm going to invite you to recall and then really re-inhabit, go back and sort of relive a simple caring moment when you were with another person. And this would be a moment that makes you happy to recall or feels deeply positive. And it's a moment when someone was radiating warmth and care to you, seeing you in your deep worth, or deeply listening to you, or really rooting you on, you know, supporting you, cheering you, or taking joy in you, or wishing you well. So you might just see, before we do the actual meditation, just see if you recall such a moment from any time in your life. Some moment of care, of kindness, of positive connection with someone else. And I'll just give you my little snapshot of the moment I'm thinking of for myself for this practice. I visited an old friend from college days, and she had 2 children. One was 10, the other was 4. And the 4-year-old wanted to give me a manicure. She wanted to paint my nails. And I said, well, I'm about to lead a retreat tomorrow, so maybe you could paint my toenails because then I can wear socks in the meditation hall. So she took every different color she had, and my toes were about 10 different colors. So this just a moment in time, just a snap, you know, just a brief moment of a time of connection, a time of care, a time of sweetness. If you can't immediately think of a moment in that form, take some time, you know, just give yourself a little more time to recall one. Just see if something arises. And it's really fine if nothing arises for you. If nothing comes to mind, you can also, here are some alternatives to this caring moment. You can recall a caring moment that you had with a pet, where a pet was caring towards you, Or you could recall a moment with another person or animal when you were the caring figure for them. So if you can't think of a time when someone was showing care to you, maybe there's an occasion when you were showing care to someone else, a pet or an animal or a person. Or another alternative is to think of a moment when you were in a place that is special to you, perhaps in nature, where you felt deeply safe, well, and at peace or at home. So just see if any of these options brings up something you can connect with. So in the meditation that we're going to do together, we're going to focus on the feeling of this caring moment, not on the stories that our minds may create about our relationships. So don't try to think of someone that was, 100% loving to you all the time, because that will be very hard to to bring to mind. So it's just a moment when they showed you care, and you're not focusing on the whole of the history that you had with them. But the idea is to really feel the experience in the body, and not get into our mind's story about it. So we're going to access the felt sense of that caring moment and just settle into it more and more fully as we explore the feeling of it. All right. So we'll begin the meditation. And I invite you to sit in a relaxed, comfortable way. You could also lie down if you have back pain, or you could stand as well if that's better for your body. But allowing yourself to be alert and present in your posture while also relaxed and at ease. Letting your eyes close or choosing a spot on the ground in front of you to gently gaze at. And beginning with a slow, deep breath. Inhaling down into the abdomen so that you feel it expanding. And then exhaling slowly and completely, releasing all the worries and tension as you exhale as much as you can. Letting the breath come all the way down into the abdomen. And then letting go of anything like worry or stress as you exhale. Relaxing for a moment at the end of the exhale before you inhale again. And repeating this a few times. And allowing the breath to settle into its own natural rhythm. allowing your whole body to be here at rest. To connect with the receptive nature of your being. Just opening to what's here without resistance, without an agenda. Just being here, really being here. Now, please recall a caring moment with its place or setting, and re-inhabit that moment as though it's occurring now. Bring this to mind not as a distant memory, but as an event that's happening right now. Relax into the felt sense of this moment, steeping in its loving energy, feeling its tender qualities, and letting them infuse your whole being. Explore accepting this loving energy and these tender qualities into your whole body and mind, into every part of your body, every cell, and into every layer of feeling and emotion. As if every part of you is loved in its very being. No part of you left out. When you notice the mind wandering, freshly recall the caring moment and let its loving power draw you back into it to settle into the feeling of it more and more within your whole body and mind. knowing yourself in this moment to be cherished, to be precious, to be seen and appreciated, just as you are. After a while, just relax deeply into this felt sense of love, warmth, and acceptance. Let this help your heart and mind to trust. Settle deeply and release all of its images and frameworks. And become completely open like space. Let patterns of thought and feeling that arise unwind and release within this utter openness of awareness, this space of warmth and deep acceptance, letting all be. My joy's like spring so warm. It makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain's like a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. Please call me by my true name, so I can hear all my cries and laughter at once, so I can hear that my joy and pain are one. Please call me by my true name, so I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left open. The door of compassion, door of compassion. So feeling again the flow of experiencing the breath down in the abdomen. And gently we'll close our practice, bringing attention back into our space together. You can take your time to open your eyes if they were closed and bring any movement into the body would be helpful. Gentle stretch or massage. Beautiful. Thank you for your practice. So I'd like to invite us to share. I think the easiest way is to share in the chat, but if someone would really like to speak, then please. But I'd like to ask you to share, to name a few of the loving qualities that you might have experienced during the second part of the meditation where we brought the caring moment to mind. And if you had problems or difficulties with connecting to this, we're gonna get to that too. So I'm not only asking you to share if it, if it was a positive experience for you, but we'll try to cover the range of what it might have been like. So, but the first thing, if you can put in the chat or maybe raise your hand, I think there's a way to raise your hand. I just see under reactions, you can clap or put your thumbs up, since I don't know how you can raise your hand. If you want to speak, just unmute yourself or let me know you want to speak. But otherwise you can put it in the chat. So what were a few of the loving qualities that you experienced in the meditation? So we'll share those in the chat.
I just want to tell you that if you click on participant in the
Yeah.
chat, it will open on the name of all of us, and there is the raise hand button if someone wants to.
Right. Thank you, Barbara.
Okay.
So there's the raising. I don't see it on my screen.
No,
so
click
thank
on
you.
participants.
Yes, I have participants open.
Yeah, and it open all the, there is all the name of us on top.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah, and then there is invite, mute me, and raise hand button. And then underneath I've got Zoom group chat because I opened both.
Okay, I think because I'm the host, it's not showing me how to raise the hand. So now you figured out how to do it. So that's great. Thank you. I see Sophie, you have your, please share. Would you like to share?
I was just
I'll read
experimenting
out.
with the
Oh, go
reaction.
ahead.
I'll share anyway. I felt during the meditation a great sense of warmth and like sort of a permeating warmth, but also that accompanied with a sadness as well. They sort of went hand in hand.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing, Sophie. Thank you. So I'll read what some of you are writing. A river of warmth going through the sternum into the heart and after tears. Thank you to whom? And Aaron, held warmly and completely. Paula, sympathetic joy and sense of being able to rest in the warmth of another. Thank you. Miriam, kindness radiating. Anne, bubbles of joy in my chest and upper body. Beautiful. Deborah and David, held in a sea of love. Thank you. Anne, warmth and a sense of comfort. Thank you, Anne. Claudie, warm, wonderful and warm. I felt held and supported. Thank you, Claudie. Isabel, calm. Yeah. Khan says light and safe. Thank you. Annie, my heart opening and bathed in love. Thank you, Annie. Renica, chills with beaming smiles, tears, and at ease, comfort, and secure. Thank you. We're just taking all of that in, just allowing that to nourish us. And another reflection is to identify a difficulty or problem that came up for you during the meditation at some point, which can signal how some part of you might have been reacting to the meditation. For example, a part of you that wants to think about other things, a part of you that doubts that any caring moment is good enough. Sometimes we think through a bunch of them and think, no, that can't be it. No, that can't be it, right? That sense of like, this isn't, you know, profound enough, deep enough, whatever. Or maybe a part of you that doesn't think you deserve love or you should be receptive to it. Or a part of you that wants to grieve the loss of someone that was present with you in your caring moment. And so when we say part of you, it's referring to this sense of self that's operative in you in that moment with its patterns of thought and feeling. So, you know, mindfulness has no preference in terms of positive feelings or difficult feelings. So if there was any moment that you felt this was, you know, judgment coming up or doubt or, you know, some blockage, please share that also, because that's an important part of this as well. And I'll just read Harry. I felt safe and restful, a sense of trust and confident. Thank you. Any challenging feelings? to write in the chat. Difficulties. Avi writes peace. Beautiful. Barbara, care, love, safe, moved, feeling of crying, wanting that the moment wasn't ending. Yeah, so not wanting it to end, sure. Renica, mind kept wanting to go to the storyline, the narrative. Yes, that's very common. We're used to associating the feeling with the whole piece, so it's not so easy to just embody the feeling without going back into the story. Thank you for that. Annie, I did start to grieve the loss of my grandfather. Sure, it's very natural. That feeling of being cared for, and then we grieve that that person isn't there. Sophie, judgment of the thoughts that came up. Thank you. Thank you for naming that. There's that part of us that judges the vulnerable, tender parts. Yeah, so it's good to notice, good to recognize. And Terry, restlessness, anxiety. Yes, thank you for sharing this. There can be parts of us that, are challenged by being invited to recall these moments. Maybe we don't want to open ourselves up in this tender way. Tehani, thoughts came up and had a sadness in my heart area, as well as a feeling of being blocked. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. It's really a practice, and it's meant to be practiced every day. This teacher, John Merkransky, invites us to, when we do find that moment, and it could be you choose different moments, you use this moment for a week and then you choose another caring moment for another week. But what you just shared, Tehani, about feeling blocked, when we do find something that we can connect to, we can bring it to mind every day when we wake up, and several times throughout the day, just the feeling, as much as possible, just the feeling. And I think that will help with that sensation of being blocked. Just a tiny taste of it in different moments of the day can help us to trust that a bit more. Khan shares longing and a bit of doubt if I'm at the right place, since I don't have that available when I would like to have that connection. Thank you, Khan. So there's a part of us that thinks, I can't do this, or this isn't available to me, or I'm not feeling this in this way. And I just want to say to that, Khan, there's one alternative. I didn't mention it during the before the meditation, but instead of bringing to mind a caring moment of interaction with another person, another option is to recall our own spiritual field of compassionate connection, and to experience ourselves and our whole world as held in this power of its love and wisdom. So you can, in this spiritual field alternative, you can bring to mind the field of caring benefactors, mentors, spiritual teachers that you're familiar with. Maybe the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, spiritual ancestors, or a saint or a divine figure. Feeling them present to you, that could be one way to invoke this spiritual field. Or secondly, to construct your own spiritual field by thinking of someone whom you are grateful has been in your life or world, who has inspired, blessed, or uplifted you by their presence or their way of mentoring you. So you would envision that person before you and feel them present to you. So it's like getting in touch with an inspiring person, or pantheon of people, teachers, saints, angels, however you relate to that. So if you use that option, and I'm naming it for those who are finding it difficult to connect with the one person in the compassionate caring moment, if you choose the field, then instead of bringing to mind the caring moment, you do this embodied exploration of what it's like to be held in this spiritual field instead of in this moment of care. So you bring the spiritual field to mind as the caring moment that's happening now. And then the same instructions I gave of feeling it pervading all through your body, this unconditionality of love, this stability. So the figures that we bring to mind are holding us and our whole world in unreserved, unchanging, all-embracing love, compassion, and wisdom. So I'll send everyone in the follow-up these instructions. So for those that struggled to connect with a person in a caring moment, you might try it again with the spiritual field alternative and see if that is more helpful to you. And Paula says it was an effort to choose one moment and to accept it as good enough. Yeah, thank you. I think that's, we can try to find the perfect one, right? And so it's good to just trust in, if the feeling is there of care, then just go with the feeling and leave the rest, because we'll always find something to pick at in one memory or another, like, but they weren't exactly what I needed them to be, or I didn't respond the way I, we can always get caught up in the story. But if we can touch just the feeling, then it's good enough. And Erin shared potential loss of being who the moment was about, losing being and feeling. Potential loss of being who the moment was about, losing being and feeling. Oh, you mean by dropping the story? I think that's what you might be referring to, Erin, that it's hard to, this sense of losing connection if you drop the storyline. I'm guessing that's what you're sharing. Yeah. And An shares, feeling like Tehani. Thank you for putting my feelings in words. Yes, thank you, An. Yeah. Monica, extended the warm feeling to others came in naturally. I was thinking about my grandma, who I met once, then to my mom, who I live with and have moments of difficult relationship with. Yes, thank you. So was it like thinking about your grandma, then you wanted to include your mom in that too? Was that what you mean? Like it just started to want to spread out? That's beautiful. Yes, that's what this feeling does. It wants to get bigger and bigger and bigger and more inclusive. And that is the practice, to make our hearts more and more vast so they can include everyone. Thank you for that. To whom, can it be a very simple moment like a gaze of my pet? Yes, yes, very simple. Just a gaze from your pet. That's all you need. It can be just a millisecond of a sense of care. So we're not looking for the most profound experience, just a simple sense of being cared for, of being loved. Thank you for that question, To whom. All right, thank you for your offering your experience. I think it's very supportive of others to hear, what your experience was, because then, we may see ourselves reflected. So I'd like to offer a few thoughts and on this topic of compassion and grounding in times of loss and grief, and then we'll have time for discussion and questions. So the kind of underpinning of this meditation is that the more we can open up to the experience of being loved and accepted and held, that's what we need as a, so that we can turn towards our suffering with compassion. But it's very hard to extend compassion and love to others if we're not accessing that experience of having been loved. And this is, you know, a part of the Western psychological models of healthy self-development and sort of the stages of emotional maturity, that there needs to be some kind of grounding in experiencing ourselves as loved in order to be able to extend that to others. And the good news is it's never too late to cultivate this experience of being loved, whatever our childhoods were like, even if that was really lacking in how we were raised or in our young adulthood. We can nourish this sense of being loved and being safe. So, I mean, basically, we can heal our psyches, regardless of how our lives have been up until now, and we can learn to love ourselves, and we can learn to extend great, vast, unconditional love to others. And that is really the you know, the reason for practicing is to know this space of receptivity to love, and just because as soon as you start to connect with this love from your grandma, you wanted to include your mom in it. That is the motion of this experience, is it starts to saturate us, and then it wants to just keep going and saturate our surroundings, right? So Thai, my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, we call him Thai, means teacher in Vietnamese. He gives the example of a plant in Vietnam as a kind of spring onion, a kind of green onion, that when you cut it, the more you cut it, the more it grows. And he gave that example for this energy of loving kindness. The more you engage with it, the more you access it, the more it wants to, you know, manifest in your life and include everyone. So this meditation we did, we can tap into this moment as soon as we wake up, this experience of care, and many times throughout the day, remembering just the felt sense of being cared for, of being loved. And it reminds me of the waking up gatha, the waking up verse in the Plum Village tradition, in the Vietnamese Zen tradition. There are all these mindfulness verses that help us to bring attention to each part of our day. And there's this verse, they're usually four lines, and they can be recited with the in-breath one line, the out-breath one line, in-breath, third line, out-breath, fourth line. So this one is, waking up this morning, I smile. 24 brand new hours are before me. I vow to live them mindfully and to look upon all beings with eyes of compassion and love. So it's the same idea, right? I've been practicing this gatha for over 20 years when I wake up, and it's a wonderful way to start the day. And it really influences me throughout the day. Like this morning, I saw a mosquito on my towel, was just hanging out peacefully on the towel this morning, and I was tempted to like get it because it was didn't know I was there. And I had recited that Gata on waking up, and I restrained myself. I said, well, maybe you are a kind of mosquito that could give me dengue fever, but I'm not going to kill you. So when we make that aspiration at the beginning of the day, it really does support us throughout the day. So it's the same with this moment of care, moment of connecting to our own sense of being loved and supported. It's a kind of resilience, you know, to nourish ourselves the moment we wake up with, you know, it's really true that we are loved, but we have a negativity bias in our minds that, you know, for most people, me included, one of the first things I think about when I wake up is, what do I have to do today? Or did I forget something that I was supposed to do yesterday? Or, oh my gosh, do I have time to, the mind can go very quickly to fear or worry or anxiety or planning, you know, that just can become stress very quickly. So our minds easily go into places that bring ill-being. So it's really important to remember what is very, very true, but we don't usually spend much time there. And that is that we are loved, that we are cared for, that life is supporting us. In every breath, life is supporting us. That's a kind of love just from the planet Earth. So I want to talk about uncertainty also, and how we can practice in times of uncertainty, because it can be very hard to feel okay when we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how long the lockdown or the stay-at-home orders are going to continue. We don't know who might get sick or die. And we don't know how this is going to affect the economy or our own financial future. So there's a teaching about uncertainty. I mean, we all want to know for sure what's going to happen, right? That's just so human. And yet there is something about uncertainty that is very fertile and fecund. When we know what's going to happen, you know, there's no possibility there. But if we don't know, everything is possible. So there's a book which I still haven't read, but I just always come back to the title. It's by Alan Watts, and it's The Wisdom of Insecurity. And he talks about that, you know, when we step into the unknown, we can welcome infinite number of possibilities. And so if we can hang out there, rather than searching for what is known just because it's safe, you know, we may find things beyond our imagination come into being. So my own little personal experience of this is that I felt really called after being a nun for I was a nun for 15 years, but I left the community after I'd been ordained for 13 years, and I really felt called out of the monastery. I wanted very much to stay in the community, but I felt I would not be true to myself if I didn't listen to this voice that was really saying it's time to move into some other form. But it was terrifying because I had no idea what was coming next. I had no, you know, there was no job, there was no relationship, there was no place to live. It was really just all I could see was the tiniest step right in front of me. And it was a huge leap of faith. I mean, I felt like I was just going to die because I had no, it was all of my identity for my whole adult life from age like 22 until almost 40. I was in this community. And when I listened to this voice and I decided, you know, I can't stay here because it's safe. I have to be true to what I'm being called to do. When I just made the tiniest step, I really felt like the earth came up to meet my foot when I didn't know where I was going to step, but somehow something came up and supported me. And then I had to take, something came up and also supported me, but I couldn't have known until I just reached my foot out into the nothingness what was going to happen. So I learned a lot from that it's in the trusting the unknown that you can find incredible trust and confidence come back to you. So I want to read you a story about this. This is from Gil Fronsdal. He's a Vipassana teacher in the US. The story is called So you have full permission at this moment to get very comfortable and cuddly. This is just going to be a 5-minute story, but if you like to be in a more relaxed posture, feel free. Story time. So, the work leader of the monastery told, I had reached an impasse after 25 years in the monastery. Myself diligently to monastic practice. Through much effort of my powers of concentration, through much effort, my powers of concentration, mindfulness were among the strongest the abbot had ever seen. I was known for my peace and equanimity. I had few obvious attachments. However, I had not yet attained realization. Other monks with less time in the monastery and less thorough practice had reached various levels of awakening. Everyone thought my circumstance was most strange. Then one day, the abbot took me aside for a long walk. We discussed how I was held back by my fear of completely letting go. As much as I trusted the spiritual life, at my core was some deep, unarticulated, nagging mistrust. As long as I could remember, a part of me was on the lookout for impending tragedy. At the end of the conversation, the abbot told me he could think of only one more catalyst for my enlightenment. Just the possibility brought me tears of joy, until he told me it meant entering a basement room called the Abyss. The Abyss. No one in many generations had entered this room. Only the abbot was entrusted with the secret knowledge of what was inside. No one else knew. While the red door to the room was kept locked, it needn't to be. It didn't need to be. An atmosphere of terror emanated from within, and the monks were afraid to walk anywhere close to the door. Walking down to the basement, the abbot explained that my one and last opportunity was inside this room. Once I entered this room, there would be no turning back. Standing in front of the door, I had mixed feelings about entering. The abbot carefully explained the instructions that had been transmitted to him. I was to step into the room. The abbot was to close and lock the door behind me, and under no circumstance was he to unlock it again. On entering the room, I was simply to walk to the other side of the room and exit through the door there. It sounded easy enough. Suddenly, the abbot opened the door and pushed me inside. Before I could get my bearings, I heard the door lock behind me. The room proved to be huge, perhaps 100 feet wide. On the other side of the room was a door just like the one I had entered. The room had no floor. I was standing on a ledge as wide as the door. Between me and the other door was a gaping abyss. I could not see the bottom. From the depths came horrible grinding and cracking sounds. Finally, a ball of flame shot upward. I was scared and perplexed. How was I supposed to walk across? I spent the first day standing on the ledge, studying, certain that I was meant to discover some secret way to get across. I spent the second day banging on the door, hoping that someone would let me out. I cried most of the third day. Being on the ledge, one of my slippers fell off my foot. As it fell, the grinding noises seemed to get worse. On the fourth day, I desperately and repeatedly actions. They were so simple. Walk across the room and out the other door. Could I trust the abbot? Tired, fifth day, I gave up all hope. Convinced I had no other choice but to try the instructions, I decided to walk out off the ledge. I tried not to imagine what depths. Terrified, I looked straight ahead and took a step into the room, into the unknown. As my foot came down the ledge, receiving me with a firm, stable base. It took me another day to take the second step, but when I finally did, the ledge again extended itself outwards to foot. I continued walking into the emptiness, and with each step the ledge became longer. Soon enough, I had reached the opposite side. From that day on, letting go into the freedom of realization has come easily. The end. A little story about the wisdom of. So, my dear friends, it's time now for any kind of sharing that wants to happen. If you have questions, you them out loud. You can unmute yourself, or you can write them in the chat. If you have reflections that you want to offer on this topic, we have about 15 minutes, and then we'll take the last 5 minutes to close together. So, Khan asks, how can you differentiate between letting go and wanting to run away from a situation? Question, very important area of discernment. So the running away is because of habit energy. So I can share from my experience, and maybe others have more wisdom to add, but my experience of letting go, there's no other place to get to. When I'm running away from something, I'm to get away and I'm going somewhere else. Like there's this agenda, right? And I can feel it in my body very clearly. Everything is agitation in the body, is restlessness, is worry, is some kind of suffering. But letting go, there's no suffering. And there's no other place I have to get get away from this. It's a really free feeling of, okay, I don't have to grasp onto this. It doesn't even mean I have to get away. When I let go, I might actually be able to be in the situation with a lot more freedom and not have to push away something that I was trying to push away before. So there's a joy in letting go that isn't there when I'm trying to run away. And it's possible to become really friendly with this habit energy of running away without judging it, without wrong. We can become very compassionate to run away. And it's okay for it to be there. It's okay that we have some part of ourselves that wants to run away. We get close to it, we can get to know it, we can listen to it. One question I find really helpful with these habit energies is to approach them with kindness and to ask to teach me. And we might write the first thing, and then we pose the question again. What would you like to teach me? This habit energy of running, whatever comes to mind. It might not be a response to that question. It might be something completely unexpected. An image, a sound, a smell, a line from a poem. Just ask yourself again, what does this habit energy want to teach me? Just keep listening to it, keep honoring it, respecting it. Okay, you're here, you have something important to teach me. So I hope that's useful in differentiating. And Tuhung asks, what is it to care for, and how does it feel to care for and to be cared for? It's a very important question. And I think it's like if someone, hasn't been to Vietnam or another tropical country and they say, what does a papaya taste like? Or what does durian taste like? And you describe it as much as you can, but you have to give them a piece to taste it, and then they know what it tastes like. So I think this is something that we want to try to touch for ourselves. And because I know you, Tuhung, and I know you have a dog, maybe that answer could be there in if your dog were to start whimpering and limping, what's wrong with its foot, how would you feel? You probably would feel quite some care. I need to help this dog, he's suffering, I need to do something so that so maybe there's some way you can touch into the experience of it if you bring to mind someone that you care about or some animal that you care about, and if you would feel if they were in some kind of real physical pain, that and you would want to do something about that. You would feel that pain yourself. You'd want to relieve it, right? So maybe that's a way to get in touch with it. And just to tell you, there's a wonderful monk in Australia. You all in Australia probably know of him. John Brahm, England. He's in a Theravadan tradition. But his instructions on how to begin to generate compassion are by a little kitten that's been abandoned, that's very skinny and starving, and it just needs milk and to be held and to be resuscitated. So that's how he practices to generate this sense of care. It's by visualizing this little tiny abandoned kitten and how he would want to hold it and feed it and, you know, bring it back to, you know, natural state of health. So sorry, that's the bread truck delivering bread. So thank you for that question. And a wonderful sharing from Terry. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. Just to add to that, Terry, that yes, what a great reflection on that story, right? And I was, excuse me, John McCransky gave a talk, and he was saying that the root of all fear is the fear of our emotions. So if we can learn to embrace and be there for our emotions, then we tackle the root of all fear of anything external. It's really starting from what we're afraid of within ourselves. So Miriam has a question. Could you offer any advice on ability and possibility of becoming sick? Yes, thank you for that question, Miriam. Well, what's coming to mind is compassion is the best protection. This is a line from Sister Chung Kong's book, Learning True Love, about her time with Thai, and especially during the war. She talked about a monk that was given the task of going into an active war zone. So there was a village that had been bombed, and Thai and Sister Chung Kong and many of their School of Youth for Social Service were treating the wounded in a school. And they learned that the fighting was going to come closer to them and that they would all be at risk of being attacked, like not intentionally, but just because they would be in the line of fire. So they had a monk go and try to talk to both sides and say, look, we've got all these wounded people here. Can you all please not, you know, start to move in on us? So he basically had to go through a battleground where bullets were whizzing from both sides. And he did this with the greatest compassion in his heart. And I'm sure he was terribly afraid also. But he was able to talk to the heads of both sides, and they agreed not to take the fighting closer to all of these wounded people. And he came back and he said, the bullets avoided me. And he said, you know, it was his compassion that he felt was his protection. And they asked him, you know, were you afraid? He said, of course I was afraid. So it's not that he wasn't afraid, but that his heart of compassion was some protected. And, you know, I'm not sure what I would do. I can't what your profession is. So is that okay? So Miriam is a doctor. And I think, you know, this question might be a personal question of, you know, you're at risk just doing your job. You know, my cousin is a nurse in Denver in the US, and she now has the virus. She's a single mother of 3. I share that with you and also ask you to hold her in your prayers. Her name is Jindea Robinson. But she's a health professional, and she put herself at risk showing up to work every day, and now she has the virus. So I mean, the possibility of becoming sick is very real. And so what do we do? And I think it's something like this story. We can't go back. We can't go back the door we came in from. That's closed, right? So all we can do is either sit on the ledge or forward. And we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen when we put a foot forward. And I mean, the deepest truth is anything can happen at any time. Anything can happen at any time. I mean, people get run over all the time. People get cancer. People get killed in a tsunami. I mean, this is, but what about all the things that we don't know that could happen? And that's the reality all the time. So in one way, if we just accept that we don't have control, period, then it makes it a little bit easier to face the uncontrolled COVID-19. Knowing, of course, we take all the precautions we know we need to take, and we don't put ourselves at risk in any way, putting ourselves at risk, but we can't protect ourselves or our loved ones, even not in a pandemic, right? That's really not under our control. So we have to accept what is under, our control, and that's like how we choose to relate to our circumstances. That's the only thing we can have, not the circumstances. So one more story. This is from Ty's life. When he'd been exiled from Vietnam for calling for peace, and his whole heart was in trying to protect people in his home. The war finally ended, and then there were all these people escaping from the country by boat. So then his big concern was how to help them not drown on their way to safety. So he and his friends, they rented a boat or bought a boat, and they would go out into the water, into the oceans, to find these boats of refugees, give them maps, give them water, help them with, language booklets to learn the language of the, whether it was the Philippines or Malaysia or Singapore where they were going. And of course, there were also many pirates out on the high seas trying to take advantage of these people. So one of the people in Ty's group said, let's carry a gun in case a pirate boat attacks us. And Ty said, oh, no, 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 no. No way will we carry a gun. That's not what we're about. So you could say, well, that was irresponsible because now, all of them will be at risk if they get attacked by pirates. But Ty's point was, if we carry a gun, we're projecting into the world our own fear. So I think we can look at the virus in this way too. How do we project into the world our own confidence, our own love, our own care, and not our fear? One last piece on this. I met a Dharma teacher He's covered in tattoos and he uses a lot of swear words in his Dharma talks. His name is Vinny Ferraro. He was a drug addict and in a gang, and, you know, came from a family where there was a lot of addiction. It was a very difficult life that he came out of to become a Dharma teacher. But he talks about when he was in this gang running the streets. He said, I had a gun for 1 year. I carried a gun. He said that was the year I was the most afraid in my whole life. The year he carried a gun. So just, you know, just like reframing, right? Like actually, when we feel most safe is when we help others to feel safe. So I think bringing all of our attention to caring for others, for, you know, bringing this moment of care into your first thing when you wake up, this feeling cared, and throughout the day, feeling cared for, feeling loved. I think that's probably one of the best ways to strengthen our immune system and to calm our fear. And it's perfectly normal to be afraid, and that fear can be held and understood. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Miriam. And just a real heartfelt prayer and offer of support to you and all healthcare workers for your safety, for your health, for your well-being. And Renika asks, okay, there's lots of really good questions, so I think we'll just we'll shorten our ending. The story talks about trusting. Can you let go without consciously knowing trust is there or not? I think, I don't know if you'd come on, Renika, and just add a little bit more to that question. Or if you want to write something, but
might be easy for me to try and say it out loud.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like the environment that you've built to be able to let go. So if the environment's not right, if it's not, do you have to build up that environment first to be able to do that step of letting go? But having the image of the monk telling him to trust him and just take that step, there was something for him to hang on to. Whereas sometimes if you're alone and you've not got a word of wisdom in your ear, you've got nothing, absolutely nothing, and you're running and chasing and letting go. Does it have the same effect, I guess?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, no, that's really important. Thank you. And I think for me, it brings it back to the whole premise of this meditation, which is to strengthen our own sense of being loved so that then we can turn that love towards others. I think we do need to really feel some sense of trust in order to let go. I think there does need to be, I mean, there's times, right, when we don't have a choice and we're forced to let go. Someone we love dies. That's like, we don't have a choice about letting them go in a way, right? Or something else gets taken from us and we can't get it back. It's gone. But again, I would come back to the way we can learn to see that as an opportunity to grow our trust. versus seeing ourselves as a victim of that forced letting go, right? Like we can surrender to the experience of not being in control and experience a lot of lightness in that, resisting and stopping resisting what is. But it's so just to say, sometimes there's no choice whether we get to cultivate trust before we have to let go. But of course, if we have some sense of being held already, we can really rely on that in moments where we're forced to let go, or when letting go just has to happen. And that's to me the importance of this kind of meditation, where we're cultivating all the time a sense of groundedness in ourselves in the midst of groundlessness all around, right? But I think that maybe it's about how gracefully we can do the letting go. That the more sense of trust we have, then the more confident we can let go. But so often there isn't a choice, right? And it's really just, well, how do you approach it, since there is no choice? Do you approach it with the willingness to open to it, to surrender, or do you approach it fighting, kicking, screaming, resisting? And to me, that's where the experience of trust can help to lessen the secondary suffering that we lay on top of the need to let go. Yeah? Thank you. Terry shares that vulnerability is a strength. Very much so. Thank you, Terry. Surabi has written in the chat, today's discussion and reflection allowed me to discover a space within me, one of being comfortable with uncertainty. Thank you. Thank you, Surabi. Deborah and David, I feel fear about allowing myself to feel grief about climate grief. I fear it being grief without end and without refuge, and wonder if it's wise, but also feel constriction in not going there. How can we relate to this grief wisely? Thank you for this question. I think it's important to set up some kind of container for us to experience our grief. In fact, I had an opportunity to be part of a beautiful grief tending workshop from a dear friend, Sophie Banks, in the UK. And she offers these regularly online, so I'm happy to send her information to anyone in the follow-up email. But there's a real container that's created that is a safe, place within which we can allow ourselves to open to the grief. And one of the things about grief is that it can feel like it's going to overwhelm us if we let it in, like it will just, like the song I was singing, my pain is a river of tears, so vast it fills the four oceans. But my experience is when we allow ourselves to feel it, within a safe space, we touch the universality of it. We touch the way it's touching everyone in this moment, that we're not alone holding this grief. And that can help us to feel not so overwhelmed if we try to resist it, and then it becomes like I'm all alone trying to do this. right? Holding this climate grief. But when we open to it, we touch the vastness of the fact that all humans are experiencing some kind of grief, some kind of trauma in relation to the climate, whether they know it or not. We're all sharing this planet. We're all experiencing this sixth mass extinction where 200 species go extinct every day. So somehow the opening to it actually is a doorway to being able to hold it. But when we don't open to it, it feels like it will just swallow us whole. So it's a bit of a paradox, but in the opening to it, we actually find we are much bigger than we thought. We have a lot more capacity than we thought. But I would encourage us to explore this in groups and in ways that are held with mindfulness. And also, like, one of the things we did in this grief tending was after the fact, we were all encouraged to take good care of ourselves with self-care, with, taking care of the body, with checking in with someone, who hadn't been at the ceremony. So there's things we can do to build in systems of support in our daily lives, people we can talk to, nourishing things we can be in touch with, so that we're not, so it's not only about the grief, but the grief has a container of health, of wholesomeness. But we don't want to not look there, because there's a huge amount of healing that's that it's a portal into if we allow ourselves to touch it. So I'm gonna stop there, and just so grateful for the depth of your questions and our practice together. And I'll send everyone the information of Sophie's grief tending. I'll put in the chat once more the information about Dana and generosity. And then we'll do a brief closing together. I know we've gone over a little bit. And this information will come in the email as well. So let's just take a moment to formulate an aspiration of how we'd like to take whatever we've received from today and bring it into our daily lives, bring it into our relationships, bring it into our work. And so we dedicate now the merit, the beautiful energy of our practice today, exploring compassion, vulnerability, the wisdom of uncertainty in the face of loss and grief. We dedicate this wholesome, healing merit now to all beings everywhere, that all beings everywhere may know the courage of being able to step into the unknown, that all beings everywhere may touch trust and confidence in their own goodness, that all beings everywhere may be safe and protected and at ease, while knowing that anything could happen at any time. So, letting you whisper your aspiration onto the wind of whatever it is you would like to carry forward from this time. Thank you all so much for the precious time together today. And maybe we'll gather again at some point. It's been very lovely to be together. I'll be offering another of these to the Irish Sangha on Sunday, May 24th. And I'll send that out in the email as well. But if our Australian Sangha would like to get together at some point again in the future, I would love to be with you. And I also am offering daily meditations on Sangha Live at a time that works for European and Australian time zones. So I'll just put that in the chat also. It's noon to 1 in Sri Lanka and India. And here is the link. I do a short talk, a guided meditation, and then question and answers. That's on Sangha Live daily. So you're welcome to join me there, at least until this Friday. I'm standing in for a teacher who's ill with COVID. And maybe I'll continue next week if he's not better, but Monday through Friday. Thank you all so much. I will close us here, and you're welcome to share anything you'd like in the chat as a goodbye to people. Very good to be with you all, and go well. Thank you, everyone. Yes. Okay. Much love to all.